The Sons of Liberty were a group of American patriots who played a significant role in the resistance against British colonial rule in the 18th century. Formed in the years leading up to the American Revolution, the Sons of Liberty were instrumental in organizing protests and actions against British policies, most notably the Stamp Act and the Townshend Acts. Their legacy has become synonymous with American patriotism and the fight for independence. The Sons of Liberty were formed in 1765 in response to the Stamp Act, a British law that required American colonists to purchase a stamp for every piece of paper used for legal documents, newspapers, and other printed materials. This act, which was seen as a direct taxation without representation, incited widespread anger throughout the colonies. The first Sons of Liberty group was founded in Boston, where the local population was particularly enraged by the Stamp Act. The group's primary aim was to protest the British laws and organize acts of resistance, using a combination of political agitation, public demonstrations, and sometimes violence. The Sons of Liberty were composed of various prominent colonial leaders, including Samuel Adams, John Hancock, and Paul Revere. These figures played central roles in organizing resistance, while the group also included a wide range of artisans, merchants, and laborers. The diversity of the group's membership reflected the broad spectrum of colonial society that was united by the common cause of fighting British oppression. One of the most famous actions of the Sons of Liberty was the Boston Tea Party in 1773. In response to the Tea Act, which gave the British East India Company a monopoly on tea sales in the colonies. The Sons of Liberty orchestrated the dramatic protest in which they boarded British ships in Boston Harbor and dumped 342 chests of tea into the water. This bold act of defiance angered the British government, leading to the passage of the Coercive Acts, also known as the Intolerable Acts, which further heightened tensions between the colonies and Britain. The Sons of Liberty were not just involved in physical acts of protest, they also engaged in political advocacy and lobbying to spread the message of colonial rights. They used pamphlets, newspapers, and public speeches to rally support for their cause, often emphasizing the principles of liberty, natural rights, and self-governance. The group worked to unite the colonies in their struggle against British authority, and their influence grew rapidly throughout the 1760s and 1770s. In addition to their activism, the Sons of Liberty also employed more direct and sometimes violent tactics to achieve their objectives. They were known for intimidating British officials, burning effigies, and organizing mob actions to disrupt the implementation of British laws. In some instances, their protests led to the destruction of property and the forced resignation of British officials. While these actions were controversial, they were seen as necessary measures to stand up to an overreaching and oppressive government. The influence of the Sons of Liberty extended beyond the protests and resistance efforts of the 1760s and 1770s. The group's actions helped to lay the groundwork for the broader American Revolution by mobilizing public sentiment and creating a sense of unity among the colonies. The Sons of Liberty were instrumental in the creation of the Continental Congress, which would later become the governing body of the United States during the Revolutionary War. Their efforts also helped to inspire the drafting of key documents like the Declaration of Independence, which would formalize the colony's break from British rule. Despite their significant role in the American Revolution, the Sons of Liberty were not a cohesive, centralized organization. Rather, they were a loose network of individuals and groups that acted in concert but operated independently in different regions. Their actions were often spontaneous and decentralized, with local groups organizing their own protests and rallies in response to British policies. This decentralization was part of the group's strategy, as it allowed for greater flexibility and adaptability in the face of British repression. In conclusion, the Sons of Liberty were pivotal figures in the history of American resistance to British colonial rule. Their actions, both violent and nonviolent, played a crucial role in galvanizing colonial opposition to British policies and setting the stage for the American Revolution. Their legacy as champions of liberty, self-governance, and resistance to oppression continues to be celebrated in American history as symbols of patriotism and the fight for independence. The Sons of Liberty remain an enduring symbol of the power of grassroots activism in challenging unjust authority.